I want to say Julie Holland once said this about you. She said that she sees you as a little kid on a tricycle ramming into a brick wall for 30 some years and just keep ramming into this brick wall until this brick wall starts crumbling.
But he told me this massive surprise is that he had actually decided to donate $1 million. And he'd gotten 4 other people to also offer to donate $1 million, and that
right.
he would do a $5 million matching grant.
$5 million.
Yeah, but we only had 90 days. It was like a time-limited matching grant that he did to try to motivate the donor, so that we would have, and it was also all or nothing. If we raised 4.5 million, we wouldn't get it all.
Get anything. Oh my gosh.
No.
Oh my gosh. Speak about pressure.
Yeah. In the analysis. So tomorrow, we're going to find out if the first of our 2 phase 3 studies was statistically significant.
Wow. Tomorrow. Wow, Rick. And the prediction is it probably will be based on your preliminary analysis.
Yeah, because going down from 100 to 90 people is not that
right.
much. I mean, if we went from 100 to 40, I'd be a lot more concerned, even though we have had statistical significance with studies even smaller than 40. So what we're planning to do, we've given the New York Times an exclusive on reporting the results. And because of the election and all that, we think it'll be coming out around November 15th.
New York Times.
Yeah, New York Times, around November 15th. A bunch of meetings with the donors who gave us money for this most recent 30 million and some of the earlier donors for the first 34 million in 2018. And what we're planning to do is that if the study is statistically significant, then what that means is that we think we have raised all the money we need for approval for the FDA, Israel, and Canada. So in phase 3, the FDA wants most of the data from the US, but it doesn't all have to be in the US. So for strategic reasons, for family reasons, what we have is 15 sites in phase 3 for our first phase 3 study. 2 were in Israel, 2 were in Canada, 1 in Montreal, 1 in Vancouver, and 11 were throughout the United States. And so because we're collecting phase 3 data from both Israel and Canada, as well as the United States, what happens is once we're done with our second phase 3 study, and if it and the first ones were significant, then we're going to submit the data to the FDA, to Health Canada, and the Israeli Ministry of Health for approval in all 3 countries. So we're anticipating somewhere around the middle of 2022 to finish the second phase 3 study. And then there's a roughly 8-month review process. So depending on when we finish the second phase 3 study, either the end of 2022, early first part of 2023 is when we hope for approvals.
So many exciting developments, Rick. So many exciting developments, and you're steep in it right now. You're obviously very excited, and a lot of people are watching. A lot of people are excited about this. It looks like if everything goes right, MDMA-assisted psychotherapy will be approved somewhere around 2023. The approvals will start coming in, and then it will be available. The breakthrough status that FDA granted MDMA-assisted therapy is a very rare thing. And the definition of the breakthrough status is that it's better than any existing therapies.
What we showed is that in these most difficult cases with this therapy that you've just described, that 23% no longer had PTSD at the 2-month follow-up that were in the control group, the people that got the therapy without active MDMA. And what that means is that the therapy itself and the therapists were trying their best to actually help people, and that there was a pretty good outcome, 23% no longer having PTSD when they failed before, and that they're treatment resistant. Now, when we added MDMA, when they got therapy with active MDMA, 56% no longer had PTSD. What we found at the 12-month follow-up is that 2/3 no longer had PTSD.
2/3, right.
And 2/3. And what that means is that people learn how to process trauma. and they can keep getting better on their own. That we have sort of turned this around so that what was previously experiences that were too painful for people to process, but also they were unable to really put in their past, that would come to them in nightmares, that would come to them in reminders during the day, in triggers, that they would be feeling like this trauma was still happening. It wasn't in the past. They were always vulnerable, that they couldn't really get past it, that they've learned how to process trauma, and then they can use that without the drug and without the therapy going on. And that's where I said that MDMA is easier to integrate than the classic psychedelics.
There is something very interesting happening in that respect, that right after, a week or 2 or 4 weeks after the therapy is over, 1/3 no longer meets the diagnostic criteria. A year later, the same group, 2/3 no longer meets diagnostic. If it's true, and if this holds, if this whole oxytocin hypothesis holds, we have something really big on our hands in terms of healing relationships.
That MDMA stimulates oxytocin. And that not only that, but that the oxytocin stimulates new neural connections.
Neurogenesis.
Well, it's neurotogenesis. So it's not clear yet that it's the birth of new neurons, but it's the growth of new neural connections. So the synapses go to more different connections. And
so neuroplasticity would be a better term.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, neuroplasticity is a better term, and that it does it in prosocial areas of the brain. And that helps to explain why the changes can be long-lasting,
right,
because you are actually rewiring your brain. So what it shows is that MDMA produces prosocial behavior in ways that go so deep in our evolutionary history that it's pre-verbal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also speculated this is because of oxytocin. It's not why you just take a pill and everything feels better. People actually go through some very difficult emotional experiences, physical sensations, crying, shaking. It's like the trauma that was, when it was happening to them, people didn't know how to respond, or they couldn't, or they had to focus on survival, or they just dissociated.
Right.
Or, various strategies to happen when you're being hurt and traumatized. And so what the MDMA does is it permits these dissociated memories, or memories that are have been submerged, to come to the surface, and you can experience them, you can express them. What we understand now about memory is that it's not like you take the memory like a book off the shelf, you read it and you put it back. You have to reprint the book in a way. We're changing our memories over time, which explains a lot about why we remember things the way we wish they were instead of the way they really were. But what's happening is that when you're experiencing these memories, these traumatic memories, under the influence of MDMA, and you're releasing them, and you're able to put them into the past, and when you reconsolidate the memory, you've enhanced the memory, so it's a better sense of the memory, but you've also replaced the fear valence to the memory with something. It's peaceful, it's in the past, I accept it, it's part of my story.
It's essentially, exposure therapy has been the main paradigm for trauma treatment. So what MDMA does it simply allows exposure treatment to be way more effective from what we understand so far. Consolidate those memories and then act in different ways in your life and get a feedback from the world and from other people that gives you actually what you need.
Yeah. Now, the other, I think, thing that's very important to say is that we have worked with people who have had complex PTSD from decades before, and they're still able to get better. We've worked with PTSD patients who had PTSD from Vietnam, who are still able to get better. So that even though we have these sort of ingrained patterns of response that are dysfunctional, that there is still hope for healing. And so I think that's just important for people to understand, that no matter how long you've had it, it is still possible to heal.
One point that I find very, very important is that you have It's a very new form of therapy. There hasn't previously been a psychotherapy that was combined with medication. You do your medication, you do your psychotherapy. They are not necessarily combined. Here we have a healing substance, and then the psychotherapy is designed around the properties of the substance. And we have, for a reason that hopefully we'll get into discussing, we have a team of 2 therapists, and we have a prescribing doctor. So there is a team working with you. So the structure of this therapy, just for people who, again, are very new to this, I like to make a kind of 4 points here, because screening is a very important point. So first, it's screening, meaning, are you a good candidate for this therapy? You could talk about that a little bit more. Then you have preparation sessions, and usually there is maybe 3 preparation sessions where you actually prepare for the dosing. Then there is dosing, which is a long, several hour session, and then there's the integration session. And this form of therapy is often referred to as integration therapy, because the point of this therapy is not so much to have the experience, although some will argue that the experience itself is a wonderful thing. But the point of therapy is to integrate the insights and the gains that happen during the experience into everyday life. So I just want to make these few points. Do you want to add anything to this?
And then the integration process is key, because I would say that the difference between recreational use of psychedelic drugs and therapeutic use is that in recreational use, what's happening is that people are looking for an experience in the moment. This is going to be fun. They're looking for an experience in the moment, but they're not thinking about how do they change their baseline. In a therapeutic thing, the experience in the moment is important, but what's most important is what you bring back from the experience and how you change your behavior without the drug. So I'd say one of the explanations too of why for the last several decades it's only been nonprofit pharma that's been looking at this. It's only a few years that there's been for-profit new companies trying to look at this, is that we're not trying to make people use a drug every day for the rest of their lives. Our model is completely different. We want to do short-term, profound, deep interventions that make a change, and then through the integration process, make it so they don't need the drugs anymore.
The same substance that was put on Schedule 1, meaning can't use, can't possess, evil, the same substance, if the research results hold, is going to turn out to be, in combination with psychotherapy, one of the most powerful medications that we know. It is a powerful, mind-altering medication. How do you protect from potential abuse by therapists? Because people who are on that medication might develop way more prone to develop loving attachment feelings, including towards the therapist that they spent 8 hours in the session with. How do you protect from that? A separate question, and I notice it's not outlawed in your ethics guidelines, the question of therapeutic touch.
Touch, yes. So part of our approach, the 2-person therapy team, is designed to prevent those kind of abuses from taking place. They're more likely to happen when there's a one therapist for one patient. Also, at least in the research, everything is videotaped. We're not quite sure if in the future they'll be videotaped post-approval, but it's not as reliable of a way to reduce abuse as 2 persons, because a lot of stuff can happen off camera. But I think that's very important. And I think the other part of that is the training that we give to the therapists. And we see that kind of sexual abuse that you're talking about happens a lot of times, way too many times, I'll just say, in regular psychotherapy too. So it's not unique to psychedelics, but we have to be especially careful. So we're going to have
especially careful, though, for sure, because of the psychoactive properties of the MDMA.
Yeah. So we're going to be having a patient bill of rights. We're going to be having complaint lines. We're going to be having all sorts of things where we can gather information about that. So I think that that's really the one of the solutions that we'll have towards trying to deal with this idea of sexual abuse of the patient. Now your other question was
therapeutic touch.
Touch, yeah. Okay, so because so much of it is somaticized, there is value in therapeutic touch, and sometimes the logo of MDMA, and I don't know if maybe when you show it, the logo of MDMA is two hands. So it's about humans. It's not about, it's got a psychedelic background, but it's two hands, about people helping each other. So sometimes just holding somebody's hand can be very helpful as they're going through something very scary. So therapeutic touch is something that's very delicate.
I just want to say that what I call a MAPS Public Benefit Corporation is the most ethical pharmaceutical company in the world. And I hope I'm right. I'm not sure where I am, but I hope I'm right. And so I would really encourage people who are interested in contributing to the progress in research, especially in relationship research. If you guys want a direct link to the hottest relationship study that is getting set up right now, you can even go to our website at enhancedtherapy.ca and donate.
We do intend to sell MDMA. We do intend to sell it at a profit, but it'll be maximizing public benefit, not profit. But to supplement philanthropy, because there's an endless number of things that we need to study. But I want to say that the Public Benefit Corporation has only one investor, which is the nonprofit. So the nonprofit is the 100% owner of the for-profit. So whatever profits are made are not going to go to me or to my pocket or any of the MAP staff. It goes directly to the nonprofit and to our mission. So that's our corporate structure. Yeah, thank you. Tomorrow's going to be a big day.
Big day. Another big day on November 3rd. Okay, Rick. Okay. All the best to you. Thank you so much. Bye.